Commander Jake Dalton had been stationed on Harmony 7 for exactly 3 months, which was just long enough to realize that galactic diplomatic mixers were monumentally boring. Sure, the first few were exciting. Wow, look at the 7-foot mantis people. Oh, fascinating. That species communicates through scent glands. How delightful. Those ones are basically sentient jello. But by month 3, Jake was counting ceiling panels while a Glorbian ambassador droned on about trade route efficiency for the 19th time. That's when Crix found him. Crix was a Velnari medical officer, which meant he had 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern on his face, skin that shifted between purple and blue depending on his mood, and apparently, the galaxy's worst case of work-related stress. He'd cornered Jake by the refreshment table, all 4 eyes bloodshot and twitching. Your species has a saying, yes? About needing a drink? Crix's translator rendered his voice as perpetually exhausted. I'm understanding this sentiment now. 14 hours of surgery on a Krellian who decided to test if his species could digest engine coolant. Spoiler, they cannot. Jake grinned. Finally, someone interesting. You know what, buddy? I've got just the thing. He shouldn't have done it. Looking back, Jake would admit this. But in his defense, every other species on the station had their own versions of intoxicants, relaxants, and social lubricants. How was he supposed to know that human biology was, as the official report would later state, aggressively abnormal? Jake pulled out his flask. It was good tequila, too. The expensive stuff his sister had smuggled to him in a care package labeled, definitely not alcohol, just earth water. Very legal. This is what we use back home when we've had a rough day, Jake said, offering it to Crix. Just a little sip. Takes the edge off. Crix took the flask with 2 of his 3-fingered hands, peered at the clear liquid with all 4 eyes and shrugged, with his shoulder equivalents. If it helps humans, perhaps it will help Velnari. Our biochemistries are relatively similar, yes? Both carbon-based, both oxygen breathers. Exactly, science, Jake said, with the confidence of someone who'd barely passed high school biology. Crix took a sip. For approximately 1.3 seconds, nothing happened. Then Crix made a sound that Jake's translator couldn't even process, just rendered as error, no equivalent phoneme. All 4 of his eyes bulged outward like they were trying to escape his skull. His skin flashed through colors that probably weren't supposed to exist. A purple so dark it looked like a hole in reality, then a yellow that hurt to look at, then a green that suggested something had gone catastrophically wrong with his internal organs. Hot, Crix gasped, which seemed like an understatement. Hot! Why is it hot? It is burning my insides. This is burning me from inside my body. Am I dying? I am dying. You have killed me with your human drink. It's just tequila. It's fine. You're fine. Jake grabbed for the flask, but Crix was stumbling backward, clutching at his throat. The Velnari's skin was now cycling through colors so fast he looked like a malfunctioning neon sign. His 4 eyes were watering all 4 of them, simultaneously, which was frankly impressive. He collapsed against the refreshment table, sending a bowl of Quintarian nutrient spheres flying. That's when someone hit the emergency alarm. Red lights bathed the diplomatic mixer in apocalyptic lighting. A computerized voice announced with robotic calm. Medical emergency detected in Conference Hall 7. Biohazard protocols engaging. Please remain calm and await decontamination procedures. Decontamination? Jake stared as blast doors began sliding shut. It's tequila, not anthrax. But nobody was listening. Security Chief Bront, all 9 feet of armored Chittic warrior, came thundering into the hall with a containment team. Crix was loaded onto an anti-grav stretcher, while still making sounds that the translator had given up trying to interpret, just displaying continued vocal distress on everyone's heads-up displays. Jake stood there, flask still in hand, surrounded by panicking aliens, and realized that he'd royally screwed up. The last thing he saw before the security team escorted him out was Dr. Kleep, the station's chief medical officer, all 12 of his tentacles flailing in distress as he rushed toward the medical bay, leaving a trail of nervous blue slime in his wake. This was going to be a really long day. The medical bay of Harmony 7 looked like someone had designed a hospital specifically to make visitors uncomfortable. Everything was too white, too sterile, and too full of equipment that hummed in frequencies that made human teeth ache. Jake sat in the waiting area, handcuffed to a chair, actual handcuffs, like he was some kind of criminal, while Dr. Kleep performed what appeared to be every medical test ever invented on both Crix and the remaining tequila. Dr. Kleep was a Zentari, which meant he looked like someone had taken a slug the size of a golden retriever, made it blue, given it 12 tentacles, and cursed it with the personality of a nervous grandmother. He oozed slime when stressed, which meant he was currently leaving puddles everywhere while muttering to himself in his native language. The translator kept rendering it as, oh dear, on loop. Through the observation window, Jake could see Crix strapped to a medical bed, still occasionally twitching but mostly looking miserable. The Velnari's skin had settled on a sort of grayish purple that Jake's cultural sensitivity training had taught him meant severe hangover and deep regret. A scanner arm passed over the flask of tequila, and every monitor in the medical bay immediately lit up with warnings. Impossible, Dr. Kleep whispered, his eye stalks extending to their full length in horror. This cannot be. Correct. Run the analysis again. Triple check the molecular scan. No, quadruple check. Quintuple? Is quintuple a word? I do not care if it is a word. Just check it again. Jake tried to crane his neck to see the displays. Doc, I'm telling you, it's just tequila. It's made from a plant. Humans have been drinking it for centuries. Dr. Kleep spun around so fast that 3 of his tentacles got tangled together. Centuries? Centuries? You have been poisoning yourselves with this for centuries? Well, when you say it like that, it sounds bad. It is bad. Do you know what this is? Dr. Kleep slithered over to a display panel, slapping it with multiple tentacles until it showed a 3-dimensional molecular model. This is a Class-5 biotoxin. It denatures proteins. It disrupts cellular membranes. It causes neural pathway interference at a molecular level. Jake squinted at the display. Yeah, that's ethanol. It's the fun part. The fun part. Dr. Kleep's voice went up an octave. The fun part is the part that kills organic tissue? I mean, in small doses. Small doses? Another tentacle slapped another screen. This concentration is 40% of the total liquid volume. That is not a small dose. That is a solution that is nearly half poison. We use concentrations like this to sterilize surgical equipment. To be fair, Jake said, some people do use it to sterilize stuff. It's pretty versatile. Dr. Kleep made a sound like a deflating balloon. And you drank this? Voluntarily? On purpose? Usually with salt and lime, but yeah. The doctor turned to Crix, who was now conscious enough to participate in the conversation, though he looked like he wished he wasn't. Officer Crix, how are you feeling? Please describe your symptoms in detail. Are you experiencing cellular degradation, organ failure, existential dread about the fragility of consciousness? I am experiencing, Crix said slowly, all 4 eyes half closed, the worst headache of my life. Also, the room is spinning. Also, I am fairly certain I can hear colors now. Is that normal? Absolutely not. But, Crix continued, raising one weak hand, I am not dead. I thought I would be dead. I felt like I was dying. But I am not dead. Dr. Kleep's tentacles writhed in agitation. Yes, miraculous recovery, very exciting, but you are Velnari. Your species has enhanced metabolic processing. You could probably survive a minor nuclear event with nothing but a headache. He turned back to Jake. But you, Commander Dalton, you are human. Your species is not known for exceptional poison resistance. Your own medical files show you have no cybernetic enhancements, no genetic modifications, no specialized filtration organs. Nope, Jake agreed. Just regular human. Then how? Dr. Kleep pressed his face, or the front part of his slug body that served as a face against the observation window separating them. How do you consume Class-5 biotoxins recreationally? What is wrong with your species? Did you evolve on a death world where everything is poison, so you just gave up and decided to become poison yourselves? Jake thought about that. Actually, yeah, kind of. Earth has a lot of things that want to kill us. We decided to eat them first. And drink them, apparently. Dr. Kleep slowly slid down the window, leaving a trail of slime until he was puddled on the floor. I need to file 17 different incident reports, and possibly request a psychiatric evaluation for your entire species. From his medical bed, Crix raised a shaky hand. Doctor, if it is not too much trouble, I would like some water, and perhaps something for this headache, and maybe a new digestive system. Yes, hydration and analgesics, Dr. Kleep muttered, oozing toward the medical supply cabinet. And then I need to report this to Ambassador Thrin, who will probably declare humans a biohazard. Which, honestly, seems fair at this point. Jake slumped in his chair, the handcuffs clinking. I just wanted to help a guy relax. How was I supposed to know everyone else's biology was so sensitive? Sensitive. Dr. Kleep's voice echoed through the medical bay. Commander Dalton, this substance would be lethal to 63% of Coalition species. Another 22% would require intensive medical intervention. You are not poison-resistant. You are just poison-compatible. There is a difference. Is there, though? Jake asked. The doctor threw a tentacle in the air. I am updating my medical protocols to include a new category, humans. Subcategory, biologically insane. From his medical bed, despite his misery, Crix made a sound that might have been a laugh. You know, Doctor, once the burning stops, I do feel more relaxed. Dr. Kleep's anguished wail could be heard 3 decks away. Ambassador Thrin's office was designed to intimidate, which Jake supposed made sense for a Corvaxi diplomat. Everything was scaled 20% too large for human comfort. All sharp angles and polished metal that reflected your own nervous face back at you. Thrin himself sat behind a desk that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of obsidian. His reptilian features, arranged in what Jake's cultural database, unhelpfully labeled as displeased predator expression. Commander Dalton, Thrin said, his voice like gravel sliding down a metal chute. Do you understand the severity of this situation? Jake, now unhandcuffed but flanked by 2 security officers, nodded. I do, sir, and I apologize. I genuinely thought, you thought it would be appropriate to distribute Class-5 biotoxins at a diplomatic function? Thrin's crest flared, which the database assured Jake meant he was very serious. You thought it would be acceptable to poison a medical officer? I didn't poison him. I gave him a drink. There's a difference. Security Chief Bront, standing to Thrin's left, made a clicking sound with his mandibles that the translator rendered as skeptical chittering. The massive Chittic warrior looked like someone had designed a praying mantis to win bar fights, all armored carapace and blade-like arms. He was tapping on a datapad with surprising delicacy. Commander, Bront said, his compound eyes reflecting rainbow patterns. I have been reviewing Earth's historical database. Is it true that your species has been consuming ethanol-based beverages for over 10,000 years? Yeah. Probably longer, honestly. We're not entirely sure when we started. Bront's antennae twitched. And you do this voluntarily? Multiple times? Some of you do this daily? Some people do it hourly, Jake said, then immediately regretted it when Thrin's crest flared even larger. Hourly poisoning, Thrin repeated slowly. You are describing systematic, repeated, voluntary self-poisoning as normal behavior for your species. When you say it like that, it sounds really bad. Because it is really bad. Thrin stood up, his full 7-foot height making Jake feel like he was being scolded by an angry dinosaur. Commander Dalton, the Galactic Coalition takes biological safety seriously. We have protocols, we have regulations, we have entire departments dedicated to ensuring that species with incompatible biologies do not accidentally kill each other through cultural exchanges. Right, and I totally get that, but you decided, Thrin continued, his tail swishing behind him in agitation, that these protocols did not apply to you, that your flask of liquid death was somehow exempt from basic safety considerations. Bront was still scrolling through his datapad, his mandibles clicking rhythmically. Ambassador, if I may. The data gets worse. How? Thrin demanded. How could it possibly get worse? Humans have developed hundreds of variations of alcoholic beverages. Beer, wine, whiskey, vodka, rum, gin, sake, and something called Everclear that registers at 95% ethanol by volume. Bront looked up. From his datapad. They drink this. For entertainment. Thrin sat back down heavily. 95%? Yes, sir. That is a disinfectant. That is not a beverage. That is a chemical weapon that someone put in a bottle. Jake cleared his throat. To be fair, Everclear is more of a college thing. Most adults grow out of it. Most? Bront's antennae swiveled toward Jake. Not all? There are exceptions to every rule. Thrin pressed his clawed hands against his face. Security Chief Bront, please continue your research. What else have humans decided is appropriate to consume? Bront tapped his datapad. Coffee, which contains a neurotoxic alkaloid called caffeine. Hot peppers, which trigger pain receptors as a defense mechanism. Something called energy drinks that combine multiple stimulants in concentrations that would require medical supervision for most species. Oh, and they have a cheese that contains live insect larvae. The cheese thing is just Sardinia, Jake protested. That's not all humans. But some humans, Thrin said flatly. Well, yeah, but, Commander Dalton, I need you to explain to me, in simple terms, why your species has a death wish. Because from where I am sitting, It appears that humans have looked at the galaxy's most dangerous substances and said, yes, I should put that inside my body. Jake sighed. Look, we're not trying to die. We're just trying to feel something. Life is stressful. Work is stressful. Sometimes you need something to take the edge off. On Earth, we've been dealing with predators, diseases, natural disasters, and each other for millions of years. We learned to take our fun where we could find it, by poisoning yourselves, by enjoying ourselves. Jake gestured emphatically. Yeah, okay, alcohol is technically toxic, but so is oxygen in high concentrations. So is water if you drink too much. Everything is toxic if you do it wrong. We just found the right amount of wrong that feels good. Thrin and Bront exchanged a look that Jake's cultural database suggested meant, this species is insane, but we have to deal with them anyway. Commander, Thrin said carefully, the correct amount of Class-5 biotoxin to consume is 0. The safe dosage is none. This is basic biology. Not for humans. Clearly not for humans, Bront agreed, still scrolling. Ambassador, there is more. Humans also intentionally expose themselves to extreme temperatures in devices called saunas. They jump out of functioning aircraft for recreation. They have multiple sports that involve repeated head trauma. And they have an activity called free solo climbing where they scale cliffs with no safety equipment whatsoever. Thrin's crest had stopped flaring and had started drooping, which Jake suspected meant he'd moved past anger into resigned exhaustion. Of course they do. Why would they not? Why would a species that drinks poison and eats pain not also throw themselves off cliffs? With all due respect, Ambassador, Jake said, humans got to space pretty fast, and we're generally pretty good at our jobs once we're here. So maybe our weird biology actually works for us? Your weird biology, Thrin said, has resulted in a medical emergency, 6 different safety violations, and me having to explain to the Coalition Health Committee why I allowed a human to distribute biotoxins at a diplomatic function. In my defense, I really thought everyone could drink tequila. Bront's mandibles clicked rapidly in what might have been laughter. Commander Dalton, based on this data, humans can apparently drink anything. The question is whether anyone else can survive your hospitality. Thrin pulled up a holographic form, his claws tapping irritably at the projected interface. I am filing an incident report, and updating your personnel file, and seriously considering requesting that Earth Command send me someone less biologically hazardous. You don't have to do that. I absolutely have to do that. You poisoned someone. He's fine now. That is not the point. Through the office window, Jake could see other crew members hurrying past, many of them glancing in with obvious curiosity. Word had spread fast. He was now famous for all the wrong reasons. Ambassador, Jake tried one more time. I promise this won't happen again. I'll keep my tequila to myself. No more sharing human beverages with non-humans. Scout's honor. Thrin's eyes narrowed. What is a scout? Never mind. I promise I'll be more careful. You had better be, Commander, because the next time you decide to share a piece of human culture, I want it approved in writing by 3 different departments, reviewed by Dr. Kleep, and tested on safety dummies first. Are we clear? Crystal clear, sir. Good. Now get out of my office. And Commander? Thrin's crest flared one more time. Leave the flask. Jake reluctantly placed his flask on Thrin's desk, mentally saying goodbye to 60 credits worth of good tequila, and left the office with as much dignity as he could muster, which wasn't much, considering Bront was definitely laughing at him with those clicking mandibles. Jake made it approximately 45 minutes before Ambassador Thrin summoned him back to the office. This time, the room was crowded. Dr. Kleep was there, naturally, oozing anxiety slime in the corner. Bront stood at attention, looking far too interested in the proceedings, and there were at least 6 other department heads crammed into the space, all wearing expressions that ranged from horrified curiosity to morbid fascination. Commander Dalton, Thrin began, and Jake immediately knew this was going to be bad. We have a problem. Just the one? Do not test me, Thrin warned. The problem is that your explanation of human alcohol consumption has raised more questions than it answered. Several members of my staff have expressed doubt that any species could regularly consume Class-5 biotoxins without severe biological consequences. Jake blinked. You think I'm lying? We think, said Dr. Kleep from his corner, his tentacles knotted together nervously, that you might have cybernetic enhancements that were not disclosed in your medical file, or genetic modifications, or some kind of biological augmentation that Earth Command failed to mention. I'm just a regular human. That is what concerns us, Bront said, mandibles clicking. If you are a regular human, then your entire species possesses capabilities that are not recorded in coalition databases. This is a significant intelligence gap. Thrin leaned forward. So we are going to resolve this gap right now. You are going to demonstrate, under controlled medical supervision, exactly how humans consume ethanol without dying. And we are going to scan every molecule of your body while you do it. Jake looked around the room at all the expectant alien faces. You want me to take a shot? Right here? Right now? Unless you would like to admit that you have been exaggerating your species' capabilities, Thrin said smoothly. Oh, this is a test. You're calling my bluff. Do you have a bluff to call, Commander? Jake grinned. He probably shouldn't have grinned, but this was too good. Doc, you still got my flask? Dr. Kleep reluctantly produced the flask from a hazmat containment box, holding it with 2 tentacles at maximum extension like it might explode. I must formally object to this procedure, on medical grounds, and ethical grounds, and common sense grounds. Objection noted, Thrin said. Commander, proceed. Wait. Dr. Kleep slithered forward, pulling a medical scanner from his equipment harness. If we are doing this, we are doing it properly. Commander Dalton, please stand in the scanning field. A holographic grid appeared around Jake, and he felt the tingle of medical sensors analyzing every cell in his body. The display screens lit up with more data than he could process: heart rate, neural activity, cellular metabolism, things he didn't even have names for. Baseline established, Dr. Kleep announced. All readings normal for human physiology. No cybernetic implants detected. No genetic markers for enhanced toxin resistance. He is, as he claims, distressingly ordinary. Thanks, Doc. Really feeling the love here. Jake took the flask, unscrewed the cap, and the smell of agave filled the room. Several aliens immediately backed away. One of the department heads, a Glorbian with crystalline skin, actually ducked behind a chair. You are certain about this? Thrin asked, and Jake could have sworn he heard actual concern in the ambassador's voice. Ambassador, I've been doing this since I was 21. Which, granted, is illegal before that age on Earth, but college was a weird time for all of us. Jake held up the flask in a mock toast. Here's to interspecies understanding. He took the shot straight. No salt, no lime, just pure tequila burning its way down his throat. It was good stuff, too smooth, warm, with that distinctive agave finish that made him miss home just a little bit. Jake lowered the flask and smacked his lips. See? Not dead. Not even close. The room was dead silent. Every alien was staring at him like he'd just performed a magic trick. Doctor. Kleep's tentacles had frozen mid-wave. Bronze antennae were locked in a position that Jake's database suggested meant complete system error. That's impossible, Doctor, Kleep whispered. The scans. They show the ethanol entering your system, reaching your bloodstream, crossing the blood-brain barrier. You should be experiencing cellular damage, neural interference, metabolic crisis. I'm experiencing a nice buzz, if that counts. Commander, are you in pain? Thrin asked. Nope. Discomfort? Not really. Any sensation of dying? Zero dying feelings. I feel great, actually. Little warm, but that's kind of the point. Dr. Kleep was frantically analyzing the scanner data, his eye stalks practically pressed against the display screens. This makes no biological sense. Your liver is processing the ethanol, yes, but at a rate that should not prevent acute toxicity. Your neural pathways are affected but not disrupted. Your cells are exposed to a denaturing agent, but they are not denaturing. How? Evolution, baby, Jake said, feeling the tequila hit his system. He was definitely a little buzzed now. 10,000 years of our ancestors drinking fermented everything. Beer, wine, mead, kumis, which is fermented horse milk. Don't ask, and somehow the ones who could handle it better had more kids. Natural selection in action. You evolved poison resistance, Bront said slowly, through voluntary exposure to poison. I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds stupid. Because it is stupid. Doctor, Kleep's voice cracked. That is not how evolution is supposed to work. You do not develop beneficial adaptations by poisoning yourselves for 10,000 years. That is the opposite of survival strategy. And yet, Jake gestured at himself, here I am, alive and well and only slightly drunk. One of the department heads, a timid Yapari named Pip who'd been silent until now, raised a small 3-fingered hand. Commander Dalton, how much of this substance can you consume before experiencing negative effects? Jake thought about that. Depends on the person, really. I'm about average, so maybe 6 or 7 shots before I'm really drunk, 10 or 12 before I'm making bad decisions. Probably 15 or 20 before I'm in actual danger. 20? Dr. Kleep's voice went supersonic. 20 doses of Class-5 biotoxin before medical intervention is required? Yeah, but that's like party school numbers. Most responsible adults stop way before that. Most? Braunt's mandibles were clicking rapidly. Again, not all? There are always outliers. I knew a guy in the Navy who could drink a whole bottle and still pass his physical the next morning. We called him Tank. You called him Tank, Thrin repeated. Because he consumed fuel? No, because he could absorb punishment like an armored vehicle. Although, fun fact, some humans have drunk actual fuel in emergency situations and survived. The room erupted in chaos. 3 aliens started talking at once. Dr. Kleep made a sound like a steam whistle, and one of the department heads actually fainted, which Jake hadn't known Glorbians could do. Thrin slammed his fist on the desk, scales rattling. Order! I will have order! He pointed at Jake. Commander Dalton, you are telling me that human alcohol tolerance is so high that you have named individuals who can consume lethal quantities. I mean, we also named a drink after poison. It's called a corpse reviver. And there's another one called Death in the Afternoon. And, stop, Dr. Kleep wailed. Please stop naming your death beverages. My cardiovascular equivalent cannot take this. Pip, the little Yapari, was now glowing a bright, excited orange. This is the most fascinating thing I have ever heard. Your species is amazing. You are like biological daredevils. You consume poison for entertainment. Finally, someone gets it, Jake said. Someone gets it? Thrin's crest was fully extended now. Commander, the only thing we are getting is an understanding of why humans are classified as a high-risk species for insurance purposes. Braunt was still reviewing his datapad, but now his mandibles were clicking in what Jake was pretty sure was amusement. Ambassador, the Coalition database lists 47 human beverages with alcohol content above 30%. 12 of them are above 50%. And there is one called Spiritus rectificoni that is 96% ethanol. That's Polish, Jake offered helpfully. Really nice people. Terrible winters. Makes sense they'd need strong vodka. Dr. Kleep had collapsed into a puddle on the floor. I need to update every medical protocol we have for humans. And possibly request a psychiatric evaluation for their entire planet. You said that already, Doc. It bears repeating. Thrin stood up, his full height making him tower over everyone in the room. Commander Dalton, I am officially impressed and horrified in equal measure. Your demonstration has answered our questions about human biology while simultaneously creating dozens of new concerns about human judgment. So, am I still in trouble? You are in more trouble than before, because now we know that humans are capable of consuming biotoxins, which means we need entirely new safety protocols. Do you understand the paperwork you have caused? Jake wisely decided not to mention that he also had hot sauce in his quarters, or coffee that was probably classified as a stimulant, or the ghost pepper jerky his brother had sent him. Some things were better left as surprises for later. I understand, Ambassador. I'll be more careful about cross-species cultural exchanges. See that you are, Thrin said. Now get out, and take your poison with you. And Commander? He paused. Do not, under any circumstances, share anything else from Earth without explicit authorization. I do not care if it is food, beverages, or what you consider entertainment. Approval first. Always. Yes, sir. As Jake left the office, flask in hand, he could hear Pip asking Dr. Kleep if there was any way to safely study human poison resistance without dying. Doctor. Kleep's anguished absolutely not, echoed down the corridor. Jake grinned. Maybe being stationed on Harmony 7 wasn't so boring after all. Jake should have known that trying to keep a low profile after the Great Tequila incident was impossible on a space station where gossip traveled faster than light-speed communications. By the time he made it back to his quarters, his comm unit had 17 messages, his door had a small crowd of curious aliens waiting outside, and someone had apparently started a betting pool on what other human poisons existed. The crowd parted as he approached, and Jake recognized most of them. There was Pip, the excitable Yapari, practically vibrating with curiosity and glowing bright yellow. Next to her stood Rax, a Korvaxi engineer who'd always been friendly. Behind them were at least a dozen other crew members from various species, all watching him like he was some kind of exotic zoo animal. Commander Dalton, Pip chirped, her bioluminescence flickering through excited patterns. Is it true? Can all humans do the poison drinking thing? Jake sighed and keyed open his door. It's not poison drinking, it's just drinking. And yeah, pretty much all adult humans can handle alcohol to some degree. The crowd surged forward, and Jake realized with mounting horror that he was about to give an impromptu xenobiology lecture in his quarters. Sure enough, within minutes, his small living space was packed with aliens in various states of amazement and disbelief. Okay. Everyone sit down or stand or hover or whatever your species does, Jake said, clearing off his desk. I guess we're doing this. Welcome to Human Biology 101, Why We're Apparently Crazy. Rax settled his large frame against the wall, arms crossed. I have been researching human history since the incident. Your species has been fermenting fruits and grains for over 10,000 years? At least that long, yeah. Probably longer. We've found archaeological evidence of beer brewing from 9,000 years ago. Wine even earlier. Some anthropologists think agriculture itself started because someone wanted a reliable supply of grain for beer. You develop civilization, Pip said slowly, her lights pulsing in disbelief. For alcohol? Maybe. We're not entirely sure. But yeah, humans and booze go way back. It's in our art, our religion, our celebrations, our mourning rituals. It's everywhere in our culture. A Vilnari technician Jake didn't know raised a tentacle. But why? If it is toxic, why continue consuming it? Because it feels good, Jake said simply. Look, human brains are complicated. We're self-aware enough to know we're going to die someday, which is kind of a bummer. We stress about the future, we worry about the past, we overthink everything. Alcohol shuts off some of that overthinking, makes us relax, makes social situations easier, makes us feel warm and happy and connected to each other. So, it is a coping mechanism, Rax said thoughtfully. Kind of. I mean, it can be. It can also just be fun. Humans like feeling different states of consciousness. That's why we also have caffeine, which is a stimulant, and meditation, which is like getting high on your own brain chemistry, and music festivals, which are just organized chaos with rhythmic noise. The crowd exchanged glances that Jake was learning to recognize as the universal alien expression for, these humans are insane but we're too invested now to stop. Listening. Jake pulled up his personal datapad and projected some images onto his wall screen. Okay, so alcohol is just the beginning. Let me show you the fermentation process. It starts with sugars. For the next 20 minutes, Jake gave the most unqualified biochemistry lecture in the history of the Galactic Coalition. He explained yeast, fermentation, distillation, aging in barrels, and the difference between beer, wine, and spirits. His audience listened with rapt attention, occasionally interrupting with questions that ranged from insightful to deeply concerning. So the yeast consumes sugar and produces alcohol as waste? Asked a Chitic science officer. Yep, we drink yeast poop, basically. Collective horrified silence. You did not need to phrase it that way, Rax said. But it's technically accurate. Pip's lights were cycling through colors. Jake's database labeled as fascinated horror. And different regions of Earth produce different types of alcohol? With different flavors? Oh yeah, it's a whole thing. France is famous for wine. Scotland for whiskey. Russia for vodka. Mexico for tequila. Japan for sake. Every culture has its own version. Some places even have laws about how you're allowed to make it. Like, you can't call something champagne unless it's from the Champagne region of France. Your species has legal regulations, a Glorbian administrator said slowly, about the proper production of poisons. We have entire government agencies dedicated to it, and competitions, and sommelier certifications, which are like professional poison tasters who can tell you what year the grapes were harvested by smell alone. That is the most human thing I have ever heard, Rax said, and he sounded almost impressed. You have turned poison consumption into an art form. I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds accurate, Pip finished. Commander, what other substances do humans consume that would surprise us? Jake hesitated. This was dangerous territory. But looking at all those curious alien faces, he figured the truth was going to come out eventually anyway. Okay, but you have to promise not to freak out. We promise nothing, Rax said. Continue. Right. So, coffee. It's a drink made from roasted plant seeds that contains a stimulant called caffeine. It makes us more alert and energetic. A stimulant? The Glorbian leaned forward. Like a combat drug? No. Well, sort of. But mild. We drink it every morning. Sometimes multiple times a day. You require chemical stimulation to function? Pip's lights flickered with concern. Not require. Exactly. But many humans are pretty grumpy without it. We even have jokes about not being able to function before coffee. Jake pulled up more images. Then there's chocolate, which also contains stimulants and is technically toxic to some Earth species, but humans love it. Hot peppers, which contain capsaicin that triggers pain receptors. We eat them because they hurt, which releases endorphins, which makes us feel good. We're basically hacking our own pain response for entertainment. That is self-harm, the science officer said flatly. That is flavor, Jake countered. Some of the best food in human history involves peppers. Thai food, Indian food, Mexican food, all absolutely delicious, all varying degrees of painful. Rax's crest was doing something complicated that Jake's database suggested meant impressed despite better judgment. Your species has turned suffering into an cuisine. We've turned everything into cuisine. We eat fermented cabbage, fermented soybeans, fermented fish, cheese that's literally controlled rot. We eat raw fish, raw beef, raw eggs. We have foods that are still alive when we eat them, like oysters. We have a fruit called durian that smells so bad it's banned from public transportation in some countries, but people love it anyway. Stop, the Glorbian begged. Stop. Please stop listing human foods. I am beginning to understand why your medical requirements are so extensive. Oh, and we do extreme temperature exposure on purpose. Saunas, where we sit in rooms hot enough to cause heat stress. Ice baths, where we deliberately induce mild hypothermia. Some humans combine both, going from super hot to freezing cold repeatedly, because it supposedly has health benefits. Pip was glowing a color that wasn't in Jake's database, possibly because no Yapari had ever experienced this specific emotion before. Commander Dalton, I need you to understand something. My species has a saying, comfort is survival. We build our entire civilization around avoiding discomfort, and you are describing a species that seeks discomfort actively, voluntarily, for fun. Yeah, that's pretty much humans in a nutshell. You are the most terrifying species I have ever met, Pip said. And also the coolest. Can I try some of your coffee? Absolutely not, came Dr. Kleep's voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see the Zentari doctor oozing into the room, his tentacles waving in agitation. I have been listening to this conversation through the door, and I am here to establish medical boundaries before Commander Dalton starts a station-wide poisoning epidemic. Doc, I wasn't going to. You were absolutely going to. I know that look. That is the look of a human who is about to share cultural experiences without considering biological compatibility. Dr. Kleep turned to address the crowd. Everyone, listen carefully. Human biology is an anomaly. Humans have evolved on a Class 7 death world, yes. Earth is classified as a death world in the Coalition database. They do not advertise this, and their bodies reflect this. They have redundant systems, aggressive immune responses, and a frankly disturbing ability to adapt to toxins through repeated exposure. That sounds awesome, Pip said. It sounds dangerous. Dr. Kleep's tentacles knotted together. Just because humans can consume something does not mean you can. The caffeine in human coffee would send most of you into cardiac arrest. The capsaicin in their peppers would cause chemical burns to your digestive systems. And do not even think about trying their alcohol unless you want to end up like poor Crix. How is Crix? Jake asked. Recovering. Traumatized. He has filed a formal complaint and also asked if humans have anything that tastes like fruit but less burny. I mean, we have wine. No. The crowd started to disperse, though several aliens stopped to thank Jake for the most educational and terrifying lecture they'd ever attended. Pip lingered, her lights pulsing thoughtfully. Commander Dalton, for what it is worth, I think humans are fascinating. Your species looks at danger and says, but what if we ate it? That is either very brave or very stupid. Can it be both? Jake asked. With humans? Pip's lights flickered in what might have been laughter. Probably yes. The official report from the Galactic Coalition Health and Safety Committee arrived 3 days later, and it was exactly as bureaucratic and nonsense, overdramatic as Jake had expected. 17 pages of regulations, citations, and strongly worded recommendations, all boiling down to, humans are biologically weird. Please keep their weird stuff contained. Jake sat in Ambassador Thrin's office for the second time that week, watching the Corvaxi diplomats scroll through the document with increasing irritation. Class-5 restricted substance, Thrin read aloud. Requiring special handling permits, designated storage facilities, and mandatory safety briefings for any non-human personnel who might come into contact with human consumables. He looked up. Congratulations, Commander. Your tequila now has the same classification as radioactive isotopes. I feel like that's an overreaction. The committee had 3 different species representatives faint during the review hearing when they saw the video of you drinking it. One of them had to be hospitalized for shock. That seems like a them problem, not a me problem. Thrin's crest flared, but there was something in his expression that might have been amusement. You have caused me more paperwork in 1 week than the previous human liaison caused in 6 months. And she once accidentally started a minor diplomatic incident by bringing a dog to a meeting with the Canid separatist movement. In my defense, I didn't know tequila was special. On Earth, you can buy it at any corner store. Yes, the committee was horrified by that information as well. Thrin leaned back in his chair. However, I am not actually here to reprimand you. Well, I am, but that is not the only reason I called you in. Jake sat up straighter. Sir, you have, inadvertently, become the station's resident expert on human biology and culture. Whether you wanted this position or not, you now have it. The Science Division has 17 pending requests to interview you. Medical has submitted a proposal to study human toxin resistance, and the Yapari Cultural Exchange Program has asked if you would be willing to give regular lectures on human civilization. You're kidding. I wish I were. Apparently, your impromptu presentation in your quarters was live-streamed to half the station. You are now famous. Jake groaned and put his head in his hands. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. This is the best thing that has happened to Coalition xenobiology research in decades, Thrin corrected. Humans have been members of the Coalition for only 5 years. We are still learning about your species, and you have provided more useful data in 1 week than official channels have provided in months. By poisoning someone and giving an unauthorized biology lecture? By being authentically human, apparently. Thrin pulled up another document. The Coalition is proposing a new position, Human Cultural Liaison and Safety Advisor. The job would involve educating non-human personnel about human capabilities, identifying potential compatibility issues, and preventing future incidents through proactive education. Jake looked up. You want me to be the guy who tells aliens not to drink tequila? Among other things, yes. Someone needs to explain to the galaxy why humans are the way they are. It might as well be someone who has already survived the learning curve. Thrin paused. Also, it comes with a promotion and a pay increase. I'm listening. I thought you might be. However, the position comes with one very important condition. Thrin's expression became serious. No more surprise cultural exchanges. Everything goes through proper channels. Everything gets safety tested. If you want to introduce the station to human cuisine, human beverages, or human recreational activities, you submit a proposal first. Are we clear? Crystal clear, sir. Good, because Security Chief Brandt has informed me that you have something called hot sauce in your quarters, and Dr. Kleep has already filed a preemptive medical objection. Jake tried to look innocent. It's just hot sauce. Commander Dalton, after this week, I do not trust any human food that requires the word just as a qualifier. There was a knock on the door, and Dr. Kleep oozed in, looking marginally less stressed than usual. Behind him came Crix, the Velnari medical officer who'd started this whole mess. Crix's skin was back to its normal purple, though all 4 of his eyes still had a slightly haunted look. Officer Crix, Thrin said formally. How are you feeling? Better, Ambassador, thank you. Crix turned to Jake, and for a moment, Jake wondered if he was about to get punched. But instead, Crix extended a hand in the human gesture he'd clearly researched. Commander Dalton, I owe you an apology. You owe me an apology? Dude, I'm the one who poisoned you. You shared something from your culture that you genuinely believed was safe. I accepted without asking questions. The incident was a failure of communication, not malice. Crix's hand was still extended. Also, once the burning stopped and the room stopped spinning in 4 dimensions, I did feel more relaxed. So, technically, it worked? Jake shook his hand, grinning. That's the spirit. Literally. Please do not encourage him, Doctor. Kleep moaned. Officer Crix has been asking questions about other human recreational substances, and I am running out of ways to say absolutely not. I am simply curious, Crix protested. The commander mentioned something called wine that is made from fermented fruits. Surely that would be less intense than the tequila? It is still poison. But gentler poison? There is no such thing as gentler poison. Thrin held up a hand. Officer Crix, if you are genuinely interested in human beverages, you may submit a request through the new Cultural Liaison Office once it is established. All inquiries will be reviewed by medical staff and tested for safety before any cultural exchange occurs. So I could potentially, eventually, with proper safety protocols, try human wine? Dr. Kleep made a sound like a deflating balloon, but Thrin nodded. Potentially. Eventually. With so many safety protocols that it will take months to approve. Crix's skin flickered a pleased shade of lavender. I can work with that. As they left the office, Jake could hear Dr. Kleep lecturing Crix about the dangers of developing a curiosity about human culture. This is how it starts. First you want to try the wine, then you want to try the coffee, then you are eating the pain peppers and sitting in the heat boxes, and before you know it, you are jumping out of aircraft for fun. That does sound fun, though, Crix said thoughtfully. Dr. Kleep's anguished wail echoed down the corridor. Jake made it back to his quarters to find another small crowd waiting, but this time he was ready for it. Pip was there, naturally, along with Rax and several other crew members who'd attended his impromptu lecture. Commander Dalton, Pip glowed bright yellow. Is it true? You are going to be the official human cultural liaison. Looks like it. Assuming I survive the paperwork. Does this mean you will give more lectures? About human history and culture and the fascinating ways you have survived on your death world? Probably, though we're calling it Earth, not Death World. Makes it sound less scary. But it is a Class 7 death world, Rax pointed out. I looked it up. Extreme weather patterns, tectonic instability, aggressive megafauna, thousands of poisonous species, and regular mass extinction events. By coalition standards, Earth should have been marked as uninhabitable. Yeah, but we live there anyway. That's kind of our thing. Humans are stubborn. Humans are incredible, Pip corrected. You looked at a planet that was trying to kill you and said, "No thank you, we will stay and make alcohol instead." And coffee, someone added. And spicy food, said another. And extreme sports, Rax finished. You are a species of biological overachievers. Jake leaned against his doorframe, looking at the assembled aliens who had gone from thinking he was a dangerous lunatic to thinking he was a fascinating, dangerous lunatic. It was progress, he supposed. You know what? Jake said. I think I'm going to like this job. But fair warning. If you think tequila is interesting, wait until you hear about the time humans figured out how to fry ice cream. That is thermodynamically impossible, Rax said. And yet, we did it anyway. Of course you did. Pip's lights flickered with delighted laughter. Of course you did. Later that night, after the crowd had dispersed and Jake was finally alone in his quarters, he poured himself a small glass of tequila, properly stored now in a designated containment unit, with warning labels in 17 languages, and raised it in a toast to his reflection. To humanity, he said quietly. The species that looked at the galaxy and said, "Hold my beer." His comm unit beeped. It was a message from Dr. Kleep. Commander Dalton, I have been reviewing Earth's medical literature on a substance called hot sauce. We need to talk, immediately. This is not optional. Why do humans add pain to food on purpose? Why? Jake grinned and took a sip of his tequila. Yeah, he was definitely going to like this job.